this is Elisa. Welcome back. Let's talk about the respiratory system. And this time we're going to continue talking about the gas exchange, but we're going to focus on oxygen. And then the next video we'll do carbon dioxide. So just, it's like there's just a lot to go over. Yep, let's do it. Okay, so changes in the pressures, remember P for pressures of oxygen, and then the pressures for carbon dioxide along the circulatory route kind of have to do with like where we're dropping off and picking up these gases. Okay, so for the most part, we're pulling in oxygen here, oxygen intake, and then we're offloading oxygen like here in the systemic circuit, right? So pulmonary circuit is taking in oxygen, and then the systemic circuit is like offloading the oxygen. Okay, and then carbon dioxide is uploading, hold on, CO2 here in the systemic circuit, and then we're going to be offloading it out here in the pulmonary circuit. Okay, I do it completely backwards. Yeah. So just so you know, right? And then the rationale is this, that we know we need oxygen to fuel the electron transport chain in the body, in the tissue, in the cells of the body, in the mitochondria, and all that good stuff. And so when they do break down these sugars, for the most part, and other molecules, carbon dioxide is the primary waste product, and so that carbon dioxide needs to be like removed from the blood, right? Or else it can cause acid changes in the blood, and it's and lots of other things, but right. That's the nitty gritty. So the solubility of gases. So it means like how fast like carbon dioxide or oxygen can like diffuse across a like into or out of water or the bloodstream, for example, right? And so carbon dioxide like is really good at diffusing. It's really good at getting in the water and getting off of that water. Oxygen's a little bit harder. It's a lot bit harder. It's 20 times harder. Um, yeah, so but remember, oxygen does what oxygen does, and it doesn't care what carbon dioxide is doing, right? Oxygen only cares what the other oxygens are doing. So, generally, we're trying to keep a balance of the equal amounts of oxygen and carbon dioxide are exchanged so that we're keeping that system clear, right? We're not getting a backlog of one or the other, right? So it's equal exchanges. And that respiratory, right? I'm sorry, not respiratory, but cellular respiration is able to kind of keep up and running at without any an excess of byproducts such as carbon dioxide, which can affect pH, or like an excess of even oxygen, which can alter how rapidly electron transport chain can possibly be cycling, as well as other stuff, right? The oxygen is not nice to DNA and some other things, so we don't want too much of it floating around. Um, so, right. Membrane surface area. Okay, so like the thing about the alveoli, and we talked about this earlier, is like the reason that we have it, like that the lungs just, we don't just directly have this, border on the lungs that we breathe in and everything's in, but instead we have like all these like extra little sacs. It's like increasing the surface area that we can have come in contact with any kind of gases and then exchange directly into the capillaries. So we don't have like all of this dead space right here, right? So we filled up that with volume, that membranous volume. So what it means is about 100 milliliters of blood. It can be extant in the alveolar capillaries. And it's spread over like 70 square meters, which is huge. It's like so much surface area in your lungs. Whoa, right? And then it's just all folded and smashed into your lungs. And so you can have all that like area to kind of rapidly help diffusing that oxygen and carbon dioxide, right? So that's what that is. Things that reduce membrane surface area, lung cancer, emphysema, scarification, tuberculosis, all that good stuff. Terrible stuff, actually, sorry. Decrease the surface area because it damages the surface area of the alveoli and lungs. Here's some pathology for you. So like this would be if you took, a lung and then you cut across it and you were just seeing like, exactly what the alveoli circles are. So here's the membranes of the alveoli, right? And you can imagine there's like capillaries coming through. And so healthy. alveoli right there is what we would say. And so the fluid and the blood cells in the alveoli are not, this is not what we want. This is like a leakage point. Alveolar walls are thickened by edema and scarification, right? So we don't have effective transfer. Like, see how thin they are? We really need like fast transfer, so we need thin walls, and thick walls mean we don't get great transfer of oxygen and carbon dioxide. And then like here's emphysema, which is straight up just damaged and degraded. And so now we are missing all of this extra surface area that we used to have to gain oxygen. So that's why we never actually get enough oxygen from individuals who have emphysema, right? We're missing all of that network. And also like these are damaged walls, so they are not properly coated maybe with surfactant, and they're also, the cells are not going to allow for proper transfer or maintenance of these structures, as well as like, interaction with, you probably have reduced capillary spread throughout. Okay, so those are just, some things to keep in mind. Membrane thickness, super small, only a half of a micrometer, not a millimeter, but a micrometer thick, so small. And so it presents very little obstacles to diffusion. It just slips right through. If you have scarred tissue, the membrane is thicker and it's harder for those gases to actually get between or travel through. And so we don't get equilibration or like, equal amounts of gases on either side of that membrane. And so that's where we kind of get things going into a tricky gray area. So pulmonary edema, again, the overswelling edema is what that is in left ventricular failure, actually increases the surface area of the respiratory membrane, but it makes that transfer hard, right? Because it's thicker, it's harder to get over a high wall than it is a short wall, for example. And another way, pneumonia, we looked at it physically doing that here, much thicker wall. So it's edema as well, just the swelling is what that is. Ventilation perfusion coupling. So what happens is like the rate that blood is flowing and the rate that air is like, flowing in and out is important, right? So they're relative to each other in order to make this gas exchange, relative and predictable. And we've evolved, specific rates of blood flow to specific pressures of air or concentrations of oxygen, so we can have that regular airflow. We know exactly how much is coming in, and so we can offload that, and it's, well evolved. And there actually is also some homeostasis that can occur, like, in new environments, and it's kind of nice, but it's micro changes, not huge. Okay, so requires good ventilation, right? So the alveoli need to be working, right? The capillaries need to be in enough places and around enough, effectively wrapping the alveoli and working well enough as well. Pulmonary blood vessels are going to change diameter depending on the airflow, right? So they can vasodilate, right? And they can vasoconstrict depending on whether or not they have super high airflow, or if they need to take in more air, oxygen, they would dilate, right? So if an area is poorly ventilated, the pulmonary vessels are going to be constricting. So the bronchi are changing diameter depending on the blood flow to the area as well. Okay. All right, so we're going to get into gas transport in a bit, but I think that's pretty good for now. All right, well, I hope that was helpful, and I hope you all are out there having a great day. Bye.